Well, hello there, folks. It is Monday, episode 141 of Two Chaps, Many Cultures. Welcome to another week. Welcome to just another episode. It's fantastic to be back. And today we're going to respond to something you asked us to do. We've got a few people that have said, hey, you guys, you bloviate about a lot of stuff. What we want is some tips. And some tips is what we're here to give. So at least we're going to use this episode to practice a little bit of that, if you don't mind. And we're going to talk about what happens when a yes isn't really a yes. As a leader, as a business associate of people who perhaps you have interactions with, some of them might give you a yes, but is it really a yes? Is it maybe a maybe? We're going to talk about that right now. Yes, welcome back to the show of the culture of business and the business of culture. How are you today, pal?
I am marvelous, mate.
Is that all? Just marvelous, just marvelous. Well, fantastic. You know, if I repeat that and said, are you really marvelous?
Yes, I am.
Good. And does that mean yes or maybe?
It means yes.
Yeah, okay. Seems a little bit lukewarm, which is absolutely an indication that perhaps I might need to find a little or do a little bit of digging into what's actually going on there. Because, you know, I'm used to Christian being pretty straightforward. No, it's a crappy day. Or, yeah, it's a fantastic day, and I usually take it at face value. But that's not always the case, is it?
Not necessarily, no. A yes may be a yes at face value. It may also mean something different, depending on in which context you're communicating. And that's what we're going to pick apart here a little bit today. And before we do that, let's make sure that you all know why you're here, because this is Two Chaps, Many Cultures, the show about the culture of business and the business of culture. And we want to make sure we know who you are, where you are in the world. So let us know. You see that little thingy on the bottom here? That is your call to action. We are prompting you to do something. Engage with us. Tell us where in the world you are watching this today. Maybe the place where you're watching it today is not the place where you typically do your work. Let us know that as well. And engage with us. Tell us which culture you're from and which cultures you're interacting with. Because sometimes you may find yourself in business or in social settings communicating with people that are not like you, and they will give you a yes as an answer, and they will tell you, sure, yep, yeah, yes, ja, jawohl, sí, or da, or I don't know in which other languages they could say that. Yes. And whether they actually follow through on that affirmative commitment or not remains to be seen. Sometimes it isn't necessarily that clean cut. How was that in your experience, Brett?
Absolutely. And, my culture is pretty straightforward. A yes is in yes usually. And if it's tinged with a bit of sarcasm, it may not be. So in that particular case, we might use humor to say, yeah, absolutely, mate. You know, well, yeah, absolutely, mate, might mean it's never going to happen, dude. Come on, you know better than that. And of course, if you're on the receiving end of that as a literal communicator, you might think, beautiful, it's going to happen. But perhaps it's not. So that may be the little bit of nuance in my culture, but it goes a lot deeper in other cultures. So there are some skills that we need to use as professionals to kind of tease this out, get a little bit of an idea of how do we handle it when we get the feeling, our spidey senses might go off, and perhaps the yes is not is actually more like a maybe, if not a complete rejection.
Yes, and it could, yes. And here I am saying it again. Yes. So sometimes that yes is a gut reflex response because you who are asking the question are in a position of influence, are in a position of authority, and you're asking a question that could be answered with a yes or a no, which we sometimes refer to as a closed question because it doesn't give the recipient of your question opportunity to fine-tune the response. So if you're going to ask a yes or no question, please be aware that sometimes the person you're asking that question, they may see you as a person of authority, which means they may struggle with giving you a maybe or a no or a hell no answer, because that would hurt their relationship with you. That may hurt their standing in the organization with you. So the answer will be a yes. However, the yes is merely to signal, hey, I heard your question. I took notice of the task you would like me to complete, and I will do everything within my power to meet your demands or to accommodate your request. And it is also possible that it may not happen within the parameters you outlined in the question, and yet I will still do my best. So this could mean, technically, that you're asking somebody, hey, can you get this to me by Friday at noon? And they will say yes, knowing that there is no way for them to produce that result by Friday at noon. And yet they won't jeopardize the relationship with you. They won't have the ding against their honor or against their face and say, well, no, I cannot give you a no because that will be disrespectful to you, my superior, who is asking me this. So I better do everything possible. And if I can't do it by Friday at noon, I will explain to you why it wasn't possible. And yet I will underscore that I did everything within my reach to do so. So you might feel, well, you said yes, you didn't hold up your end of the deal. You're disingenuous. You are leading me on. You're not to be trusted. You are probably not the employee, the associate that I want to give a task like this in the future, because I cannot rely on your commitment. So who's right and who's wrong?
Well, that's right. Well, this gets at, well, neither of them are right or wrong. And that's getting into what is the process. When we're asked about this by professionals, when they say, how am I going to approach this? We take them into a framework. We, first of all, have them observe and listen, right? This is I think you mentioned the DIE approach, right? This is the description, observe objectively without judgment. Kind of reserve your judgment at first. Have a look at what's going on. Don't be triggered by maybe some stereotypes of what you've heard about the person or the culture they come from, and just see and listen and get a good sense of what is going on with the person's body language and things like that. So this is usually a good indicator, because if you're from a culture that's very literal, sometimes you're not aware of these things, and you're really in the mode of the transactional approach of, if I just hear the yes, if I'm working with someone from my culture and I've worked with them before and I've had experience with them and I know that I can rely on that particular vernacular, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to assume that this is going to happen again. In the other side, we're looking at now having to kind of style switch a little bit, you have to exercise a little bit of that true intentional listening, watching, observing, so that you can see, is there anything about the person's body language, their tone of voice, their intonation, their eye contact that might be saying that there's something just a little bit off in the background that you need to dig a little bit more into.
And you mentioned it, Brett, the DIE approach. We're going to outline that a little bit more, because we forgot to mention this. I forgot to mention this. So this is our first official how-to episode, right? You saw it in the title, how to handle a yes that may be not a yes, that maybe is a maybe, or maybe is a no. So the how-to episodes will come more often in the future, and we want you to have something to take away from this. So we recognize that us blabbering is great, apparently, because you keep tuning in and somehow you find what we're teaching or relaying or sharing or have others share here on the program quite valuable to you. So we decided to give you something as a takeaway. So stay tuned till the end of the episode. We'll give you a link where you can retrieve something, our gift to you. So we call it the how-to worksheet. And today, since we're talking about how to handle the yes that probably isn't a yes, or perhaps is one, we don't know, that will contain some of these tips that we're going through here. So you don't have to take notes while you watch this. I mean, we want you to re-watch it till the cows come home, and yet we want you to have something that you can print out or store on your computer or whatever device you're using. So we have a how-to worksheet for you. Stay tuned until the end of the episode. We'll let you know how to get it. And in that worksheet, we also give you a little bit more information around this DIE approach, the description, interpretation, evaluation approach, which Brett already started to illustrate. So you want to figure out objectively what's going on, and then what do you think is happening in the situation? So find an interpretation, and if you can begin thinking about, what does this mean to me? How can I handle this? How do I feel about the situation? And who can I plug into if I don't know how to decipher what's going on here? So we'll have a little bit more information around this package in your worksheet that is available for your complimentary download, us being good chaps.
Good chaps. Good chaps. Like that. Yeah, so this is a good framework. Christian just alluded to the second step, the interpretation. What do you think is happening? Think about what and especially this gets back to the biases. If you're comfortable with realizing your own biases, understand the feelings that you're feeling when you see this happening in the situation. So interpret it, try and interpret it through an open mind, but understand that even we all have limitations in the way we interpret this, and we respond to that either negatively or positively, depending on what our background is. And then you've got that evaluation, as he says, and what I think the big step in this, if you have access to what, I particularly call a cultural concierge that can perhaps be in these interactions with you, or you can bounce these interactions off with, that kind of have insights into the people or the person you're working with, or the culture, and to say, listen, I just want to check myself here. I just want to, try to be the most supportive and manager or leader in this organization. I just want to check my assumptions here, and I want to make sure that, am I really interpreting this as a firm commitment from these people or persons, so that I can actually move forward without some false expectations and then having conflict come up later. Because all about it, if you're creating a trusting environment in any organization, really the interpretation of yes and no and maybe is fundamentally at the basis of all this trust giving, so that when something does go awry, the people that are offended by it don't immediately think, as Christian perfectly said before, you don't just negate any future involvement with the other people because you think they're not telling you the truth, even though, quite frankly, they are to the capacity in the cultural setting they're in.
And just keep in mind that those who give you a yes with a backdoor and you don't recognize it, they might assume or expect or presume that you can read between the lines, that you can pick up on their minimal nonverbal cues that actually told you, yeah, my lips are saying yes, and yet everybody else about me is giving you every indication possible that this is going to be a challenge, and maybe your deadline is a little bit too ambitious. So your expectation of clean and honest communication may be different than the expectation of clean and honest communication in a different cultural setting. So if you come from a culture that, like Brett and myself, that communicates very directly, very low context, then the word phase is often the meaning of the communication, maybe a little bit mixed in with the tonality of our voice, but our nonverbals, our body language may not, especially in a business context, may not play into it as heavily. Now, if you look at a more indirect communication style, high context communication style, the word base is one element, And yet the nonverbals, the minimal cues that you can observe, if your mind is tuned into that, if your observational skills are tuned into that, will pick up that the posture, the eye contact or lack thereof, the lower tone of voice or a questioning tone of voice might indicate that yes is only the word base, however, not the entire meaning. And there are ambiguous ways to look at what that yes could mean, right? A yes could mean a solid affirmation. Yes, I hear you, and yes, I agree, and yes, I will hold a commitment, like we do in a very direct communication style. But I mentioned earlier, hierarchy can be impacting this yes, because if you are ranking higher on that corporate ladder or that totem pole, then a no to your face will be unfavorable for the one that gives the no. Also, it could just be a matter of courtesy and good manners, because it might be seen as impolite to give you a no answer. And as Brett outlined in the very beginning, it could be this tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic, ironic yes. Of course, yes. Of course, Friday noon. Sure.
Sure.
No. So that is where tonality and body language also indicate that there is some hidden agenda or a message that was not relayed through the words that leave our mouths. So that all of this is highly contextual. And unless you have either a cultural concierge that can help you interpret that, remember DIE, if you can't interpret it adequately by yourself, find somebody who can help you with that. Find somebody that could help you with the interpretation process, or I call them, I don't know, Brett, if you call it that way. I like the term cultural interpreter. So you're not just interpreting the language, you're interpreting all the behavior around it, to figure this out. I before we went online, before we went live, I got a message on LinkedIn from somebody that I know in the recruiting world, and she said, "Hey, I have a client here who's been living in this target culture for a while now, for 2-3 years, and he still is stepping on people's toes. Do you do one-on-one coaching?" Guess what my answer was, right? So this isn't just for newbies. This could happen to you after you've been there for a while. So don't discount this as a beginner's mistake. It still happens to me after all these years that sometimes I do not pick up on some of those nuances of communication, because our meaning making is not just the words. You may have heard of Albert Mehrabian, who I think who's the most well-known communication theorist who brought up this concept. There's 3 elements of communication or meaning making: our word base, our voice tonality, and our nonverbals, our body language. And if those 3 aren't considered in the mix, then it's going to be hard to interpret the right meaning in a communication that is fairly indirect.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought of something as you're talking about that. We can practice this even if we're involved in social media. Observe about how people post topics to get an idea of what their cultural background is. Because I saw one just a couple of minutes before I came on from somebody who I follow, is a very successful salesperson, very successful at what he does. Communication is, and I've been on calls with this person, very clear, very concise in his, and he's here in the US, and he did a great post that said, when you're looking for trust, look them in the eye, engage them in the eye. And of course, I'm assuming that from a salesman point of view, that's what you're looking for with your clients. You're looking for any commitment, any yes, backed up by the physical sensation that this person's looking me in the eye. This is something I can rely on. Now, so obviously in the context of what he was describing, that's perfect. But then, I wanted to say, well, what happens if you come across somebody where looking someone in the eye is actually seen as quite uncomfortable and offensive and discomforting for people that you're working with. So it just became, I turned this over in my mind and said, should I make a comment and and say, you might want to be careful that not all the time do you just have to rely on that eye contact to affirm the yes or the commitment? Because the person might say to you as a salesperson, yeah, no, I think this looks pretty good, and you think, great, go off and put the money in the bank, and pretty soon, So it's a bit
premature.
Yeah, well, it's just an interesting, we watch, and actually, Christian, shameless plug here, Christian and I on this new app, Clubhouse. It's interesting to listen to the tonality and because this is a totally audio platform. So it's a wonderful way to listen intently to what people say, how they say it, and in which context they're using their communication. Because you can practice these things and not have to kind of hopefully make the mistake in real time in your business. You can use social media as a way of observing what people's communication style is, and really, are they committing to something or putting forward something they're committing to in the real time? I think to me, that's a little tip just to add to the toolkit of practicing, as well as our tip sheet we're going to give you, of course.
And since you're mentioning it, then let's put this up here. We are on Clubhouse, and you will be able to chat with us. So this is new to us as well, so bear with us as we're exploring this new platform. This will be a first this Wednesday. Well, if you're watching this live, then this is this Wednesday. For everybody else, you may have missed something on Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. So on Wednesday, January the 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern, or at 10 a.m. Pacific, or at 7 p.m. 1900 hours in Central Europe, you'll be able to join us on Clubhouse, and we want to see you. No, we don't want to see you there. We will hear you there, and
we will hear you there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll post this on our socials. You'll see it on Brett's socials, on mine. If you are a member of Clubhouse, that is, if you are part of this emerging platform, that we'll see how it develops. And if you don't know how to get to Clubhouse or how to get access to it, well, you might DM Brett or myself, and we might show you where the door is. Who knows?
Right. the gates.
There's a secret knock. You just need to find where.
There is a secret knot. There's certainly a secret knot. No, I think I'm excited about the platform because I think it's I've spent an inordinate amount of hours on it so far. I can guarantee it's very engaging. It's quite it's quite addictive a little bit, and mainly because of the listening. I think it's just such a great auditory experience, but also one that you can participate in, which is even better, and it's a great platform. So we'll see, but we'd love you to join us. We'd love you to join us.
The reason why we're doing this is we understand that a lot of us, a lot of our audience members may not feel comfortable being brought onto a live broadcast with a video feed to ask questions. Yeah. Of course, some of you are not shy at all. We know that, and we know who you are. We talked to some of you, and others might just feel more comfortable broaching certain topics in a more safe environment where they don't feel like their face is being judged or they're put on the spot like this. So Clubhouse is a bit more intimate. It's not on YouTube. It's not on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's fairly contained. So we want to give you an opportunity to ask us anything. So this will be more like a complimentary consultation hour, or a come around the fireplace or the campfire and we'll chat a little.
Like a coffee shop session. That's how I describe it. It's great. Absolutely. So if you like what you hear, head over to our socials, connect with us on whatever platform is your favorite platform. Please, if you find us, there we go. If you find us on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And above all, if you know somebody who might benefit from this content, we'd love to have you share it out and share it with your interwebs so that we can get a bigger audience. We're lonely. No, we're not lonely. We've got wonderful people that engage with us, but we are here. We are here to serve, and this is free. This is absolutely the cost. It's worth the cost you pay for it. So I always tell people that my opinion, and $1.80 buys you a cup of coffee. Well, maybe half a cup of coffee. Some places.
Well, it'll buy you espresso standing up in Italy, maybe not sitting down. But if you're standing at the bar, €1.50 will still get you un café.
Absolutely, and or I can just give you Christian's home address in the comments, and he'll make you a coffee. It's very good. I've had one.
All right then.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on. Well, we got coffee.
All right, that's fantastic. Well, this is another episode. Done it again.
We want you to engage with us at that level. We hope this, or we don't hope, we know these how-to tips are actually helpful. This is applicable for you right away. So, well, we're displaying it here on the screen, and yet I already recognize it's hard to click on this. So how about we put this in the chat box? So it should be populating in the comments below, wherever you are on Facebook or on YouTube or on the other socials. Go to that link. It's a bit.ly, a link shortener, but it's fairly logical here. 2 chaps, TC, many cultures, and then a how-to. And that's where you find the worksheet. Let us know who you are, and we'll let you download it. That's as easy as it is. It doesn't cost you a thing except for clicking on the link.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's another episode in the can, episode 141, believe it or not, of Two Chaps, Many Cultures. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow with a very, very special guest talking about global mobility and moving people around the world, not so much packages. But, stay tuned. It'll be great.
Yes, you should want to join in. You want to watch the one tomorrow. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Don't forget, Wednesday, the Clubhouse. We'll let you know again. We will drip this on you until you fill our room at Clubhouse. And until then, Two Chaps, Many Cultures out. We'll see you again tomorrow.
See you guys.
Bye.